So yes, I'm sitting in Cardelas Brasserie. You'll soon see tonight's themes emerge, which I can only describe as classic elegance and decadence, the best quality, and most of all, centered around whimsy and fun. My name is Kathleen. I'm the Director of Events and Catering here at Ascari Hospitality Group. As staying home has become the norm for now, our passion for delivering warmth and genuine hospitality is stronger than ever as we find new ways to keep our patrons entertained and delighted. We're so grateful to all of you for inviting us into your homes. It's great to see so many familiar faces. I also see some new ones. So for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. We are a Toronto-based restaurant company, and as of late, our dedicated team has been so busy designing and executing innovative virtual events to continue connecting with you. From world-class wine dinners like this, themed menus like our upcoming Mother's Day and Father's Day kits, a host of corporate virtual experiences, and even a bustling online shop. We cannot wait to have you dine safely with us again very, very soon. But until then, please be sure to check out all of our offerings at our website, ascarihg.com, and stay up to date with all of our awesome programming by following us on Instagram at AscariHG if you haven't already. So before we begin, always a few housekeeping tips. Please keep your mics on mute. The hustle and bustle in your kitchens really does come through. But feel free to type in any questions that pop up in the chat feature below. Tonight's discussion will be moderated by Ascari Hospitality Group's executive chef and co-owner, John Sinopoli. He will be sure to have your question answered with our guest speaker. If you wish to use the Zoom raise your hand feature, please do so, and Chef John will ask you to unmute and you can engage that way too when the time comes. Sound good? All right, well, let's get started. Our featured guest tonight is the CEO and co-founder of the St. John Group, which comprises the famed restaurants in London, bakery, and of course, the critically acclaimed winery in France, St. John and Boulevard Napoleon. Always charming and witty, hospitable, he reminds us to not take ourselves too seriously, which I can really appreciate right now. Here to talk about the love story of how St. John Wines came to be, his winemaking mantra, quality over quantity. They'll talk about several published books, including the famous title Nose to Tail, and all of the colorful commentary in between. I cannot wait. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have with us tonight, live from London, Trevor Gulliver. Take it away, John.
Hello, Trevor. Welcome, everybody. Great to see so many familiar faces. I mean, my first memory of Trevor and his partner, Fergus Henderson, was, of course, when one of my good friends about 18 years ago gifted me the book Nose to Tail. And it was just such an eye-opening approach to restaurant cooking and farm to table. And it's such a pleasure to be on the call here with Trevor and to pick his brain and get him to really open up, because I know he has a really hard time opening up. This is a very closed off individual, and it's going to be great. I mean, we're going to have a lot of fun. I think, Trevor, we're here to talk about your wines mainly. And I think what's great is that, you know, we've got two wines here. The St. John wines we've been carrying at Ascari Hospitality Group for many years, the white, the rosé, the red, all the different ones there, but also, you know, the Boulevard Napoleon wines are a bit of a change in tack, because it's not just, you know, négociant, it's, you know, it's your own vineyard. So with us tonight on the call, we have Blair Bouchard. He's the wine director for the Ascari Hospitality Group. And he's got some interesting questions for you as it pertains to, you know, the difference between the two brands and how you, what kind of customer response you get from them, because I know Blair loves the customer response we get from your wines in our venue. So Blair, I'll leave it to you to take it away for the first question of the night.
Evening, Trevor, and everybody in the room. It's a pleasure to join everybody and get to see the other side of the screen, so to speak, for a night. And I get to cook and taste. I kept my screen off for a moment while I enjoyed a few mouthfuls. I figured that was probably not anything that you need to see, but all the same, Trevor, thanks for staying up late. You know, the time change difference obviously is part of the fun of doing these virtual events, but appreciate your presence here. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, not too bad. Just keep the questions simple. Can you hear me?
Very good. Well, like I can, absolutely. Yeah. Can you hear me okay, Trevor? So if you can still hear me, one of the things that I was sort of curious about, and John was sort of alluding to it, you know, when I get the opportunity to talk to our customers, you know, before all this craziness at the table, you know, now we still get to interact with people when they come in looking for a bottle to take home. I know that sort of you know, you guys selling your wines, hand selling them to your customers is part of the equation too. But something I seem to get from folks who keep coming back for your wines is that they tend to speak to the sense of place of wherever you're representing. Obviously, you've got wines from Burgundy, you've got your Claret, you know, you've got wines from the south of France too. But especially reminded of that when I'm drinking your Bourgogne Blanc, this Chardonnay. It just seems to absolutely perfectly just deliver what I'm looking for out of a Burgundy, and that sense of place seems to be a part of your philosophy, you and Fergus as well. And the big question I have is when you guys launched the Boulevard Napoleon, how did you stumble upon that property, or was it something you happened to find, and what sense of place sort of spoke to you about that particular plot of land and that chunk of France, and what was there for you?
Oh, it was because we were stupid. Actually, it was just you know, I mean, don't be daft. The truth, it wasn't vanity. It wasn't. Now it's every day and good too. But you work directly with farmers. You bake your own bread. It was only natural. And remember, we only buy from our neighbours. They just happen to be. Remember, Edinburgh is further away than Paris is from where we are in London. So there's plenty of good Pinot in France. So why would you look at an international wine list? You don't go to that hotel and look at their international menu. You think, oh, no character. Very weird thing about, sorry, sommelier problem coming. But you know, we just buy from it. We know we can meet, we can do, we can. So, and a lot of small guys wouldn't get representation. 20 years plus, I'm sometimes third generation dealing with the same family. Occasionally I can turn around and say that just isn't, and you're using too much oak, and then 2 years, well, you seem to have got over that now. But you have the confidence, and you don't let your young would-be wine buyers, purchasers, sommeliers, call them what you will, get anywhere near, you know, because they're the worst people in the world, come with opinion and no experience. And I don't mean that rudely, I probably do. At some point, you're bound to be in a medieval village, looking at a medieval property with your mate that's been Chapoutier's winemaker in Australia. Anyone who works for Michel Chapoutier doesn't last long because he's nuts. That's why Benji lasted so long, because it was Australia, and he lasted 3 years because he only came down 3 times. So with great respect to Michel. And of course, in that, I look at this building, I go, I know where this is going. We are not doing this. And that was, I don't know, 2009. Our first vintage was 2011. Fine. I thought, I better tell Fergus, you better come down and look at this building that we have now. Well, that's quite nice. And then we had 2012, and I think, Fergus, you better come down and see what I've done and try this wine. So we had 11, 12, and 13 in the fields. And I'm thinking, we are known not to criticize, but we humbly suggest occasionally. So we kind of know, we set ourselves, we're quite rigorous. So then Fergus tasted this white wine, and it's Grenache Gris. And with Benji, because we have a deep knowledge of France, and because we buy direct, and because it matters, and you know, if you don't have a connection with the people and the land, it's not about labels, it's not about organic, it's not about biodynamic, it's not about, they often run together, because whether you took Domaine Romani Conti or Fontodi, the great houses, they are all those things. So it's not, it doesn't have to be hipster, if you will. So out of that came, and out of arguments and late nights and too much oak and not enough oak, and showing the white Boulevard, the Grenache Gris, which is, you know, we were surprised a couple of years ago, and someone rang up as our fête de vin. I wasn't going that fast. That's just, no, please, I want my license back. And so, what are you going to do about that? I said, that's very nice. And then Jeff Dunnock, who'd left Parkerville and was doing it, but it wasn't about that. It was just that Grenache Gris, it was Benji, it was late nights, it was talking. And it was also another thing about models, like in the Champenois split, you grow, we buy, etc. It was actually working with young winemakers that want to stay in the village and wanted, so we informed the viticulture. We do own vineyards now. Hail, the first don't have vineyards, and we care. And if you taste our Grenache Gris, you go, you can't place it. But talking about Chapoutier, if you try as a sommelier, for example, to sell a white Rhone, and you're going to at some point say to that customer a caveat. Now, this is a white Rhone. Now, you see, Marcin Roussin does it, and I go, I'll be the judge of that, son. And you watch them go, that's not what I expected. You go, oh, for God's sake. And it's expensive. So if you place our wine, and our white wine, and Jansen, our name dropped, she's a mate, but Jansen Robinson is 2 villages down, and the kids and everything else through the years. I'm still a difficult person to talk to about. And but you know, I know you're making wine. Of course, you know making wine. You live down the road of her house. Their house in France is down the road. But it wasn't. We just did it on our own, quietly, and it was kind of like, you tell me where this is from, and you kind of go, I'd have never guessed. I didn't ask you to guess, but in fact, this is the wine you can make in the Languedoc. This is, so you just do it quietly. And yes, we sold it in the restaurants. And yes, Fogg and I went, we can't drink all this. We might have to sell it to some other people. And now so the first vintage was 11, and we're in 20. So we're 10 years in. It has a reputation now. But a reputation is like a good restaurant. A good restaurant has regulars. So I've always said it takes 5 years for a restaurant to be a good restaurant. 5 years? You kidding me? Well, no, because some people only come once a year. They can't be a regular, whether they got married, it's the dental association, or it's the football cup or something. That's a restaurant. You go to Paris. You think if you travel, remember traveling, everybody? But you know, Ferg and I are famous for going, you've got 3 days in Italy. Yeah. So what are you doing now? What do you think we're doing? We're just working out lunch and dinner. And a couple of very small mornings where we have truffle buns and a little glass of white wine before we go for lunch. And it's the same with the restaurants, the same with the wine. So wine, if I see a wine I know on a wine list, I don't have an issue with that, because it's, oh, well, that's an old favorite, as opposed to some idea of finding something that is different, or it's not a game. And that essence of, I think we make good wine, but you'll be the judge of that. And when now people buy it, almost like we don't make enough now, and it isn't about the points, but we're just really quite happy that we do that, and it informs, which is just to quickly answer this. There is the reason there's a St. John Bourgogne, and the Confront dynasty make it for us through the Bollinger family. When they bought a long time ago, 12, 14 years ago, and they bought the Chanson estate, which was riddled with scandal, but that's for another day. And I just said, can you make me some Bourgogne? No. I was just saying, could you make, no. If you did make me some, no. And then, peut-être, can I have a white capsule? No. See, can I, looks in the cupboard. No, don't have any white capsules. And now they're coming, they're sitting and I go, we make this. But the only reason I did it was not aggrandisement, creating a brand, was that if you come in a restaurant, we don't do fish and chips, and we don't do curry, and we don't do spaghetti, but you come for what we do. You might want to do it once a year because you kind of feel today's a St. John Day, but that's great. And equally, because Burgundy, and arguably it's not got any better, is that 10 years ago, much money for it. And what you were buying, the further away you were, was pretty much rubbishy stuff. And, you know, it's a bit like Pickpool. I said to the mayor of Pickpool down in Pinay, which completely wiped out, it begins with M, it comes from the Loire, I mean, Sèvres, Maine, a Muscadet. You know, nice marketing. It's not great wine, but we sell loads of it, but we sell it at the right price. But Muscadet, I said, the mayor one day in Pinay, I said, it was 850 hectares. I went on the motorway this morning and there's Pickpool now start. Yes, Trevor, we are now 2,000 hectares. Hey, it's just an nation and it's fine. but you've got to be able to trust Burgundy. So if somebody comes into St. John, it may be the same for the Ascari folk too. You know, they just want a glass, and people can afford that in a glass. You know, we live in London, and the prices go up now because when we all finally open, touch wood and everything else, now a pint of Guinness in pounds, it can be £8. That's for a pint of beer. You know, and it got even worse. It goes to Diageo's profits. Never mind. But you want something you can rely on. So I'll do that work. I'll talk about it. They won't compromise. Now it's fun. Now we understand we're just a little restaurant, but you know, a bit. Some might know about the reason we're allowed to put the pig on the champagne bottle, and we are the only people allowed to do that by the les évêques de Reims, the bishops of Ranson, etc. But that Burgundy is something you trust, and it's going to cost you £12 a glass, maybe. I should know this. And that's kind of all those different ways we approach what we do. But most importantly, we buy from our neighbours, and we only buy from people we know. And that can be a cabbage, and certainly is the food and everything else. So that was a long answer. Blair, come on, give us some more questions.
That was a great answer. That was a great answer.
That was amazing.
I loved it. I love all the anecdotes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We actually
It's great. It's great. It's really good.
It's super good. I particularly like your take on it takes 5 years for a restaurant to become a good restaurant and to come into its own, and how you make that link to wineries as well. I mean, I think it's super insightful. I couldn't agree more about restaurants. Eric and I know the life cycle of restaurants very well, and we're in the same game as you. And I'll tell you, there's some trying times before you get to that critical mass where, like you said, you just have some people that come once a year and you need to rely on them, but you need to build that up. Same with the wine. So, you know, we have a question from Jolie and Glenn. The question is, can you tell us how you decided to make a varietal Grenache rather than a blend in the Minervois?
I suppose because the Grenache Gris in that part would go traditionally. We're up in the Black Mountains, so Montagne Noire. So we're in the Massif Central effectively. So we're behind me is this huge lump of rock, the Cevennes, all that stuff goes in. You can even ski there. No one skis there except, you know, well some people do. They were the people with flat heads. They've now got 3 motorways. They had none 25 years ago. And people say, saves us stopping now, doesn't it? But across down by the river and the Pyrenees and the sea and by the Pyrenees in the distance is where a lot of Grenache Gris comes, and that would go into in Marais. You get your Charles. What do I mean? The wines of Marais are fortified wines, so they'd often go into that. They'd go into blends. It's
just too hot for table wines, so they fortify it more.
Yeah, and it's been a traditional, it's a traditional fortified wines you see across the world in different shapes or forms. So that's where Grenache Gris would be, but it was always grown, so it would either go into. It's quite a strong grape, and where we are, and there's a lot of schist and limestone, and it's heat. We have wind, so it gets dry. So it's not that no one ever did it. It's that we used to taste it and think it was really great as a still wine. And it takes oak, and Charles knows Benjamin, but you know, Benjamin and I used to argue every time I go back and go, you bought another barrel. He said, no, I didn't. I said, we haven't got any money. You bought another barrel. Because when he was at wine school, he was with a Tetraberth, was his mate. I got a good price. So you have got another barrel then. And I guess in the same way that fortified boys used to put it into the bell jars and let it heat up, and stop the fermentation with the alcohol, etc. For us, because we know it, you'll taste. In fact, a name drop again with Jancis asked me once and said, "You got some old vintages?" I said, "We only started in 11," but she was doing a piece about Grenache Gris, so I gave her an 11, and I think a 17 or something, one that we just either just bottled or we just put in a bottle for. And it's weird because it goes to Riesling. It is really strange. And Charles will tell you, but it goes to when we started. It's really quite lean. It's never going to be linear in that sense, but it does have citrus, but not in an oven, not like a Macabeo or something. It does have a Marsanne Roussanne characteristic when it's young, so it makes you think it's probably the Rhone. And I guess because no one ever thought of doing it, and when you're working with what sells, it's a huge winemaking. More wine there than if you add Canada, Australia, New Zealand, throw in England, and a bit of Wales even, and you still don't get as much as is made in the Languedoc-Roussillon. So I guess for us it was just a natural thing to do, and it's like we always knew we were going to do some Cabernet Franc because we just thought that was hilarious. It's no excuse for making it, but we enjoy making Cabernet Franc. And Cabernet Franc, I think, it's a fabulous grape, but it has to be seen to be stuck in the Loire or used in up in Bordeaux and stuff. So I don't know. For us, it seems obvious. It seems that Gerard Bertrand and the rest now make varietal Grenache Grise. They tend to be from La Lavinière. We only use the address because that's where our winery is, because we don't follow AOCs and stuff. Well, we can't fill the forms in. It's too much. It's all in French. You must be kidding.
So, Trevor, we've got another question from Peter. I'm almost scared to ask it, but how did you develop your relationship with Charles, and what are your thoughts on the Canadian market?
Sorry, Charles? Charles? Who?
How was your?
I didn't know he was called Charles. He just came to our house one day. I thought he was the plumber.
I was gonna say, how did that relationship start? And I hope it's in some musty bar in London somewhere. But I mean, where did you guys meet?
There's certainly been some musky bars, some very SB bars. Yeah, I think Canada Day at the embassy. I don't think it's before then. I'm trying to think. Look, I'm looking dreamily at Charles's eyes. You were so much younger then.
Trevor.
Charles, you got to know the story of how you guys met. Why don't you jump in and tell the story, Charles?
Yeah, let me interrupt for a moment. And I want to say hi, Charles Baker here. And I have some more formal notes to present when John gives me the window later. But in the short term, Trevor, you and Fergus showed up here for Terroir many moons ago. Terroir is a fantastic symposium that those of us in the hospitality trade here know well, put on by Arlene Stein. And I maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago it started. I don't seem to remember.
Sounds about right, yeah.
I knew about the restaurant, etc., but these wines came along with the conversation. And Trevor, you were here a couple of times, I believe, before we, fell asleep in our Chablis in some bistro here in Toronto, and decided that it would be a good idea to bring your wines to Canada. It really started with Boulevard Napoleon wines, and a 30-second digression here is that, folks, if you asked about Grenache, the red Grenache as a monovarietal, they also work with Cinsault and Carignan as monovarietals, so counterintuitive for the Minervois appellation. But they're really terrific expressions of these varietals in that region. So Trevor and Fergus would come to Terroir, and then eventually we were just starting Cru Wine Merchants. For those of you who don't know me, I'm joined by a host of people on this call today, and I will just say that it started with Stratus Vineyards many years ago. And of course, one thing leads to another crazy thought, and before you knew it, we were bringing all sorts of lost puppies home to Ontario, and Boulevard Napoleon was really a terrific addition to the very beginning of our portfolio. And the rest will remain shrouded in the fog of time, I hope. But there have been a few lunches and visits to the Vinière and the Minervois, and it's a place. The wines grow there. They're real. There's a real sense of balance in the wines for me, and I think Melissa, who's on the call with me now, our senior portfolio manager, would agree that there's just a really lovely balance to the wines, Trevor, that you bring to your restaurant, and I think that's what we all gravitated towards. That
I can't say that.
That and the Negronis.
Yes, yes, so maybe it's the Negronis. Yeah, I got, yeah, Tara. It was interesting because there's a link with your great chefs, because they tend to eat in and Fergus's book Nose to Tail, what we did, and that'll never work. And of course, it has worked, and it remains strong today. And many chefs that have gone on from our kitchens to, if it's the Michelin star you want, or just infamy, but they've all gone, boys and girls, to do well. Think about stuff. I mean, it's a completely ludicrous idea for winemakers, for restaurateurs to become winemakers. I mean, why? I mean, time, effort, it's difficult. You're farmers, but a bit like brewers just buy the stuff and turn it into beer. But if only cider makers do what we do, if they own their orchards, in other words, we get both all the way through. The risk for making wine is profound from the hail. That doesn't matter if you're a brewer, right the way through to, oh bugger, we just sort of bought a duff lot of corks, or someone's put the wrong pipe and has just exited a whole vintage down the drain. But fundamentally, I mean, people like David at Joe Beef and all those would-be rebellious, a certain person that is noted for his maple trees around his a famously large chef tried to kill me once. He failed, and I nearly missed my flight because I was passed out at the airport, but never mind. So there was always a connection with the chefs, I think, generally. We don't do things lightly. There's a reason. There isn't vanity. There is obviously gross stupidity at times, but also we just enjoy what we do. So it was just natural that we start making wine, and with our relationship with the Sichel family, which is, a huge dynastic family in Bordeaux, and our claret is better than Berry Brothers. Sorry, I do both, and Tesco's, because I go once a year and do the blending. Oh no, I didn't say that. But we've been making that with them for over 20 odd years. We make quite a lot of pallets with them, but we are still one restaurant in London. And it's the same with the champagne. You don't have to do it. It's the same with the Conference. No. Now they're if you are named, if you're Fontodi, you're Schiappetto, you're the Italian winemakers, when they come to London, there's a very famous story. The letter's around somewhere in our archives, or just a box. So Schiappetto and Sandroni came to dinner. So I got this thing. I said, Trevor, that'd be okay? I went, yeah, of course it is. I got the letters around. So, dear Trevor, please tell Fergus. This is an Italian accent, by the way. I'm not sure if I can do that anymore. Say, please, thank you. Your brigade were wonderful. We had a fabulous time. Hey, if we ever have to drink French wines again, we only come to St. John in London to do it. That was it. I said, thank you.
Huge compliment.
Yeah, we'll take that. So and it matters. And there's always philosophy. There's always an idea of because, as Charles knows, there is depopulation. They do have a lot of social problems. And it is only from the other side of the Pyrenees, but you can just go past Marseille and all you see is vineyards. You will not see, where Charles is making wines, you will not see a cow between him and me. If it's biodynamic up in the hills, and even the biodynamic boys no longer have the donkeys and the sheep pretty much these days. But apart from Galbi, Gardiers, and the Vanguard, which those years ago in the world were the leading biodynamicists. And it's all about wine. And for the future for youngsters is maybe, I don't want to be here. This is hard. And in the old days when the local committee would give them their subvention, they got their money, they owned a house, and they went on holiday and the sun shines. Well, Frenchmen will tell you, what else do I need? Because they just lived off the land. So we are very, that matters to us. It matters to us in our village. It matters that we have our fête de vin. So we cook. You know how to win hearts. I'll tell you what, we'll do the fête de vin. And the mayor comes, his wife comes. The first time she came, I had to ask the question. That is, I'm asking is, just in case it's not necessarily his wife, it's just who he came with that day. So you get through all that kind of local stuff. and the guys we used to buy wine from, you can stop a wine purchase, you can stop a purchase of a building, an agricultural building, and this huge guy that Charles will remember called Christophe. He still comes out Fête de Vins, sits on a barrel, but he's so big, he sits on top of it, but his feet are still on the ground, and he's kind of large, and he always eats all the brains on toast. Christophe, could you guests? And he'd launched himself through the four-wheeler one day and said, I knew it was the pig. I knew it was the pig in his local accent. I went, yeah, because he knew St. John, because we used to buy wine from him before. And you kind of think, does that upset people? But now they're very proud, because we're not proud people. We're making good wine, and they know when it gets noticed and it's good for the village. And also we can cook, because cooking in the villages in rural France is now, it's very hard to find good restaurants because there's no future for chefs. And that's, so in a way we're putting a little bit back. I mean, that sounds a bit romantic, but
we may have a compromising photo of you with some.
Kathleen, I think it's time to show a couple photos to give people some context.
John, everyone
Kathleen's going to share screen.
Okay, and everyone did hear correctly. Brains on toast, delicious.
Yes, it brains. So I love. We've got that's Fergus, Trevor's partner, obviously. This might be the most formal photo I've ever seen of the two of you. I love it. And but Trevor, if you could, while we take a look at these, I mean, I'm still drinking the white, but I'd love to get your personal tasting notes on the Bourgogne Blanc, because for me, when I tasted this for the food pairing and really tried to put my mind to what I think would go with it, I mean, it was so much round minerality, round stone, and like the fragrance was very vanilla and orange blossom. And for me, I thought I had enough acidity to go with the richness of crab, which is why I paired it with that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on how this is drinking right now, and what your take on this particular white wine is.
Well, me and adjectives, I only allow 4, then you can shut up. But it's confident. The different set of words. It's versatile. It's confident. It has depth. It has quality. It's all that you want. It is not overly oaked. It is undeniably satisfying, because it's what you expect. Because you don't want that each, or sometimes that over. We're doing a fair bit of work in the Mâconnais now. Maybe that is something to do with global warming, but also because it's just good people, they're good farmers, and I'm using things like reassuring. You can say hints of citrus, you can say minerality, you can say roundness, you can say length, you can say this is going with what I'm eating. And there is when we now say we'll drink white wine all the way through a meal, it's not because you're on a diet, it's because you can drink white wine all the way through a meal. If that sounds a bit odd. And it has to be consistent to give that confidence. I'm not talking, not in the way that Champenois make it to at this point of this tasting. There's always a sense of the vintage, because more often than not, bloody the Burgundians. But I'd go, why are you changing the vintage? Well, because we sold the rest. Well, you could have sold it to me first. It's an annual. We're having the argument now, going. There's always something. And now, obviously, with the frost, now they're going to go. Well, then can you give me more, please? And it's a bit. I always got a joke about 2003. So I said, so what did happen to 2003? I went. It went in 2004, and 2005. And 2006. If you get, for those who don't know, 2003 was the hottest and the worst and the most extraordinary. As Charles knows, in my house, some of the walls are over 1 meter thick, and the winery itself is a medieval building. But farmers don't waste things because it's money. And there is, I remember that. Is this as bad as they get? That's fine. I can live with this. So in the sense of Burgundy, for me, it's a pleasure to do good Burgundy. And I see you taste it, John. I'd go, is it okay? And you go, yeah, Trevor, don't be stupid. Oh, well, I hope you're going to say that. but I still worry. And
Right.
also, and the making of it, and knowing that in a way the conference don't have to the champenoise, if you will, but they don't have to make it, but they're very happy to make it. And I think it is that idea of, because if St. John stands for one thing, it stands for it can be done this way. We can cook like this. The chefs will learn how to butcher, how to make bread. They will learn how to count. They will learn how the restaurant needs to be profitable. A good farmer knows his numbers. He may be losing that year, but he knows that he can survive next year. And for us, we were talking about St. John yesterday, was talking to some journalists. I said, you must understand that because there was always a question of how does St. John work? It's not a chain, it's not this, it doesn't do that. It has these great people. And of course, I say it's like a farm. So we've just had COVID. It is the most damning thing, which we all know, but already we're beginning to think, well, we got through it. We still have our farm. We can sow our seeds again. Of course, COVID means a lot of people have lost the farm. It's the Dust Bowl for a lot of businesses. So that's kind of how our approach to how we do things. And if it takes time, almost time with people to say, do you know who they are? I don't care. I had lunch that place. I care. Okay, so can I make you one? Not now. You're rude to us. But it's kind of, and it's all those things. And when Charles came once, it was actually Canadian Wine Week at the embassy in London, and so as usual, Charles is a bit better now. He's just be about 3 or 4 ago. Trevor, so we're going to have supper that night. In the old days, you get of all your finest would come. Say you've got 30 Canadians in St. John. That's a lot. And then so one of the maîtres would come across and go, Trevor, these they're quite noisy. It's okay. They're Canadian. Oh, they're not. They'll be absolute. Once they're set, give them. They'll be happy. Absolutely true. Different behaviours. Oh, so one day Charles just went. We were sitting down with a couple of winemakers, and Charles said, I hear you're making Burgundy. Can I try it? I went, yeah. Hadn't really crossed my mind. And I went, Charles knows his old joke, because Oz Clarke said to me once about our wines. So actually, this is really quite good. And as I said to Oz Clarke that time, he fell off his chair. Well, we didn't go to France to make shit, did we? And it's true. So Charles said, but this really is. I said, well, yes, of course it is. So then Charles said, can we take this to, I'm going to call it. And the Beausoleil that we make, you see there. Oh, these are very good snaps. And that's PR department. For us, the Beausoleil there is a way we like our rosé. And we're experts at rosé. We know our rosé. You know, it's like the bag-in-box. We're still the only Michelin star in the world, I think, that has bag-in-box, but it's been bag-in-box on our Carte de Vin for 10 years. But that's how cool we are, because the youngsters go, yeah, but see, Trevor he won't spend money on glass that we have to pay to put into to be crushed, to be taken away. And I said, it's only come X nautical miles to be in our, and of course, you know, people go, and what are regulars, what they're going to say? And I said, well, ask them. They go, oh, what's Trevor doing? And Trevor said, you can have it from the bottle at £6 a glass, or you can have it in the bag-in-box at £5 a glass. Tell Trevor, good idea, I'll pay a £5, and I have a box to go home. But so it was about the glass, you know, those big nuclear power stations on the Rhone Valley, the two, when you drive down there, that's only glass for the bottling and for Rhone Pellant, you know, for motor cars and everything else. So again, things are, and again, a good rosé, that first time you taste it, that day when the sun does come out, you go, oh, and you can't have just one bottle, can you, if there's a few of you? Yep. And that is, so it just captures the moment, really. It's the most difficult thing every year, it makes my eyes bleed, particularly now in COVID, because I couldn't get down there. And I took to Benji, he's in the room. I'm like this, we'll send some more, backwards and forwards, because we can't get it wrong. Plus we have Brexit, which is a nightmare, because then you get COVID, and all that impacted what was happening in for winemakers, and also and of course the supermarkets took production, a bit like Amazon did. So all the online boys made an absolute killing, and the smaller guys got crushed. The smaller winemakers got crushed, and at times we have power, but we're small. It's quite interesting how COVID works, and how, and it was actually big business was not only the fact that no one opened a restaurant, bar, hotel, conference center, whatever, across the whole of Europe and the world. It was also then the big boys came along and crushed the small winemakers because they took all the capacity, turn it into that comes out this color, this price point. So they all had a good COVID. But that's me getting political.
Trevor, I'm curious to know, because we had a question earlier, what's more stressful, the business of restaurants or the business of wine? And maybe that's both a pre and post COVID question.
The COVID thing is, you know, we have swapped perfectly good profit for perfectly good debt, underwritten by the government, but we've got to pay it back. You know, It's put us back a long way. The wine thing is not. The last time I went to the airport, I got turned around, and I had every piece of paper you wanted, and it was okay at midnight. It was okay at 4 a.m. and I was on an early flight, and the guy went, and something obviously happened overnight. So I haven't been, you know, I've got with Brexit, for example, to say the stress. So a winemaker said to me, actually, Trevor, now we've got to do it this way. So what, you send me the money, then I'll send you the samples. In the old days, you literally go to buy a yellow box, La Poste, put a bottle in it, goes in the post and comes here. Now, all those Amazon business, you send things back. All of a sudden, at the end of December, no one could send things back. And it's so I can't taste. And someone said, it's like buying a car, but you're not allowed to drive it before you can't.
Right.
So I've now got wines going backwards and forwards. I've got a house full of boxes trying to do it. So I'm just trying to I'll get my Irish passport. I know, grandmother. I could have played rugby for Ireland. And I'm just trying to work out my French residency, and our accountants in Carcassonne, which handle that side of it, and accountants in London, which are proper practice. Between them, they don't know what the tax situation is. And all I want is just to go. So I'll just have to go and drive. For example, we've worked with the Bretons in Bourgogne for 30 odd years. And all those guys, I can't, particularly the ones that are still making wines a little bit on the edge, but you can't do that remotely. So now as we open, the holes are appearing in our list. And I appreciate you guys, it's different because you just have to ship it in and you have that monopole system. But for us not to have that, I mean, there are so many people we're missing. Right. You know, just this time of year, or we would be down in Cassis a couple of months back, every year in Cassis with the mayor, who's a lunatic, eating seafood, all completely crazy. In Cassis, the village, everyone looks like they're 90 years old, but straight out of a God, they still wear striped t-shirts and have fags hanging out their mouths. And the women with the little poodles could be 97, but they look great, you know. And they all say that the dodgy people in Marseille, the wealthy ones, have houses in Cassis as opposed to down in the other parts of Provence and Nice, Cannes. They're not the same. But so we're missing that, you know, and also that instinctive knowledge of rosé, for example. Yeah, it's really. I mean, I'm looking at that picture there, and
what's going on in this picture? I see you wiping the sweat off your brow. I mean, could it be? Honestly, that could be.
That is the true story.
I'm with you, exactly. We love doing
that's the true. So, John, that's the true story of St. John. That is the great Uber guru chef.
Trevor, I took that picture, not your.
White below his jacket.
The
you may watch the other bloke, the restaurateur, sweating, about to kick Benjamin, going, "Get your fork off my fire." No one. It's the only time of year I cook. No one touches my flame. And that's Steve. Is one of his head chef at Smithfield. And that's kind of and that's the quails.
It says a lot. It says a lot. It says Fergus has had enough, and he's got the wine going strong, and you're stuck cooking for everybody else.
John?
Yeah, I say Fergus having enough. Charles, I mean, that man is robust.
John, yeah. Trevor, is that Steve? Steve is a Canadian, is he not? He's from Ottawa.
He is, yeah, Steve Daru, yeah.
Your head chef.
Oh, wow, amazing.
Yeah, it's okay, you're allowed. You know, he'll get back home a better person, don't worry.
Of course. I mean, here's a question.
By the way, he only touched that once, and I said, Steve, you don't know this is your first time fed the man. Yeah. I said, no, don't touch the birds. And that's
Right.
the reason I do it is it's safe.
Question that just came in. What are your restaurant plans post-COVID? Like, how are you guys planning to change the way you do business in London, in your restaurants and bakery in the coming years? Or are you?
Quick,
I'm just
a quick answer is that what it does is it makes you address the things you never got around to addressing. It makes you think this has changed. We have succession because I'm obviously getting quite old now, but we'll definitely we're already starting work for our new bakery, which is basically an extension of the existing bakery. I would think we'll open a new venture this year. We'll probably open another little shop which just sells bread and wine. It produces, we make it, we sell it, we take the money. We've got a balance sheet to repair in the harsh terms, and I think that it's gone on so long that those that have let you down have suddenly got a second chance. You go, oh, that's worked out well, and others you go, oh well, blimey. Everyone has we have the same issue about people go from work from home, which is a big difference for them wanting to come back. Those that have got children or dogs or whatever, the furlough system, you make more money being at home and the government pays you, and the will to live. I think you only can see it as an opportunity to do new things. Our online sales have been great. We didn't want to do it, but we did do it, and so we do have boxes delivered across the UK, which have been a success. We outsold Ottolenghi once, that was great. But we just did it. It was more important to us. Like with the last one we did, and we were behind everybody, so we will wait. It was a cassoulet. Now, when we did a cassoulet, so Steve, in fact, those three, including me, and our two other head chefs, we just took us 2 weeks to decide to do it. For us, this is, are we really going to do a cassoulet? And they had to be, the beans have to be tarbaize, which is Tarbes, so that's the land near around the Tarbes. It had to be this, it had to be, and when you got it, and this is a one dish thing, so with due respect to Ottolenghi, so Yosim's got about 87 things that you compile and put together and turn it into, it's Lebanese, no, it's Israeli, no, it's this, it's just Middle East and whatever stuff, but very popular, nice books. And they've got the new baby now, isn't that lovely? Yeah, good TV. But for us to do it, and more importantly, when you got it in this Scottish island or around the corner in the Isle of Dogs or Cornwall, you went, wow, this is St. John. This is brilliant. So now we know that maybe we won't sell hundreds again, but we can comfortably do in February and November, we're just going to do that now. And you can only pre-book, we'll only do 500 in the month. See, that's an income stream, but for us, it's also doing something we enjoy, doing it properly, and knowing that people, it's that back to that, I can only come once a year. So if there's routes to market, to use that terrible phrase, fine. And in fact, we've kind of enjoyed that. I just think you just have to take it to an opportunity. That's more like it. There's Chef. Yeah, that's me looking at him going, where's he gone now?
I mean, that reminds me of how you just described the wine, confident and versatile. There you go, just like this photo. I love it. I got a great question from one of our participants here, Melissa. She talks about more of a comment, but I'd love to turn it into a question. The Grenache has some age on it. It's 2015, so it's over 5 years old. But it still tastes super youthful. It's got plenty of freshly cracked fruit and herbs, she describes it as. Talk about this vintage for us, the Grenache, and tell us about what's keeping its youthful edge to it.
And Melissa should have said, tell him it's the Grenache, the red, not the gris. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's the red. Yes, sorry. We're drinking the Grenache red tonight.
Yeah. No. Bad wine in 2015. I mean, seriously, we had to do something wrong. It was a pretty like you see the blue skies. We got plenty of blue skies, but it kind of rained when it should. It was never too hot. The season went on long enough. You know, everyone could go on a holiday, then come back and go, right, now's. That is a terrible photograph of Fergus leaning into a very large gin and tonic. And I mean, that is a bad photo. Get rid of that, honestly.
Okay,
And,
we can take the photo down. I love the picture of Fergus reaching through the bars for the glass of wine. It's beautiful.
God. So, and I think by 15, we always knew about Grenache. And I would say that our best wine is our Carignan. I think Carignan is misunderstood. I think it does age. Remember, by the time we got to 2015, to use that phrase, Van der Gaal, what we knew was we had wine that would age. And that's a critical thing, because you never know. Because what we did with the weight of the bottle, how we did this, the use of oak, the time we took, how we pick, we do pick, sometimes at night because of temperature, and all the logistics. And by 15, you can see it's confident. The Grenache has a crunchiness to it. It's not like in the Rhone, but it has a gloss. Who uses that for Lisse, Lisse? You can get, it's a bit like slate lick. So it's got that, but it also has that richness, and I'm going to do this thing, but it has violets, not quite cherry stone, but there's something in there that is cherry, but also has a kind of velvet mouthfeel. So it's almost, I hate the word robe, but you can sense that if you use the word robe, it has that. But it has a little bit of austerity, which we like. The Carignan will err to more sinewy, if you will. And in terms of a food wine, we arrive at our percentages because that's where they should arrive at. So if they're, and we're generally pretty good, we're allowed, 0.5. But the myth of it's a heavy alcohol wine, because if you tell people afterwards, they don't really know. They can guess it's a heavy wine, and I just think it's almost a qualitative thing. You would not think that was a wine from the Languedoc, and you wouldn't think of a Grenache. If you thought it was Grenache, you'd think of brambles, bramble leaves, a bit of hedgerow, some scrub, and maybe some dust, and that kind of thin, maybe over extracted. Why don't you just turn that into spiritueuse? Whereas this is, I don't want to say too much about wine. That sounds like I'm a salesman, but I think it's fit for purpose. I think it has depth, it has quality, it's well made, it's has age, and for us it has a resonance. We make it and we're very pleased with it, which delights us. But you don't have to drink it all the time. If it suits with that dish or just on its own, fine.
It's super delightful, Trevor, and I'll tell you, I was inspired to pair this the way I did with the flavors tonight, and I credit an old friend named Mark Parnega, who used to work at George Restaurant here in Toronto, and he's a great sommelier and an excellent wine palate. And we did a dinner once, just a private fun thing at home, and he brought a Southern Rhone, not Southern, a Southern, I believe it was from Cahors, but it was same thing, mostly Grenache, and it had notes of lavender in it. And so I did a lavender braised rabbit on polenta for the night, and it was so stellar and so perfect. And when I tasted this, I'm like, oh my God, I get to do it again. Like, I was so excited. I thought this is going to work so beautifully, and the pairing is going to nail it. And most people wouldn't do, I don't think, a white wine braised poultry, like a rabbit, with a deep red wine like this, but it really does bring out a lot of the spice in the wine, in my opinion. I just think the wine is so alive and so feminine, and I loved it. So thank you for making such a delicious wine. We have one more question here. I'm going to make it the last question before we let everyone go back to their evening at home. It's from Linda and David. In what circumstances and with which wines is aeration an advantage prior to drinking? And what's your opinion on aeration in general? And That's a big question, more general wine drinking. But I think that it's interesting because there's a big movement now for people who like with natural wines. You open them up, leave them on the counter for a few days, you go back to drinking them. I mean, what's your take on that?
It's that egg gizmo, isn't it? As we said once, for those that know what a Luddite is, and a newspaper columnist said, would you describe yourself? Luddites were people that broke down machinery in the days of early industrial revolution. And the answer was, well, we are certainly not Luddites, but we are a bit Luddish. And that's big. Why would I put that thing this guy showed me? It's funny, he's a fine wine salesman. You put it in, you swirl it around, and look, it doesn't taste better. I'm thinking, well, that's a bit like, I don't know, adding some soda stream. It's like, forget it. If I just think it's gizmology. You know, some wines do, and we all know as wine professionals, when we get that guff and go, if we're lucky, it will go, and then we can drink it. But generally, I just think it's a gizmo. Doesn't it make them all taste the same? You know, I mean, I'm not a great fan of using all the systems. We use Verdevin for, and I think that's the best of the preservation systems, because it looks after champagne. You all know that you sell one glass of champagne, there's a bottle of 5 in it, you're thinking, bugger. And if you're a good restaurateur, whatever they want, they have. It's a bit like if it says 11 o'clock and it's 10:59, you're in. And it should always be that, because that makes it special. Because and if it's 1 minute past, you say, don't worry, just relax, welcome. It's quite important. So I think there's a bit of gizmology. I think some wines will be better. It's fun, I'm tasting wines now, so they're either down in the cellar at home or they're in the fridge, because I just go back 2 days later. Because I just have to, because I can't run the risk of making a mistake. So I'm decanting it, I'm for occasionally. But generally, this new thing, I just think, oh, shake it, mate. Well, you and I know we're professionals. We do that. If we're in a tasting, we just shake the bottle and get the SO2 or whatever. Yeah, if it's carbonic, etc. We just get rid of it. And I've got a lot of samples now that, of course, have got a bottle shock, and so I have to do that. But generally, no, I think that's just going to that department store and going to the wine department and a bit like blokes getting they get pipes anymore, but they certainly get socks and they get wine gizmo. Oh, thank you. Right. Yeah, Dad likes that. Give him that. What do I do with this? So I don't know. We in the business don't use them, and there's a reason for that. But we certainly do that in the bottle or in the glass so we can taste it. So I would be careful.
I love I think it's the word of the week now, gizmology. It's awesome. I mean,
it's a bit like a sommelier writing a book. Hope he's the next, or she's the next Tony Bourdain, and it's like, nah, that's just no. And the word sommelier, not som.
Right. I'm going to throw it to Charles, because I think he's got a few things he wants to say before we wrap it up. Charles, the floor is yours.
Just reading my colleague Melissa's comment. Fantastic. Thank you. Professor Paul Vermaker.
I thought she was going to tell me off.
No, well, that'll take a little longer. So I just wanted to have a couple of words here. It's the next day for you, Trevor, now.
It is, yeah.
It's the next day. So above and beyond everything else, our gratitude to you for staying with us into the next day. I wanted to just say a couple of words, John, just to preempt some questions, etc., from the commercial side of things. But as you know, we are Cru wine merchants, and I mentioned earlier that we started as Stratus Vineyards, and tonight we're joined somewhere on this Rubik's Cube of screens by David and Elisa Feldberg, the founders and owners of Stratus and of Cru. So a couple of other familiar faces, actually quite a few familiar faces from my neighborhood. The only reason I know that is that we kept bumping into each other as we chased down the rabbits for dinner tonight. They're all over. So some of us use dogs, the rest of us just ran. But we're really grateful to see a lot of familiar faces. Trevor, it's been a pleasure to work with you and the wines. We do have a boatload of Beausoleil Rosé on the water. We managed to make sure it didn't go down the Suez Canal. It came this way instead, and it should be here by June. Some of you will notice that others on the screen are drinking champagne, the St. John champagne. That too is on the water, as they say in our trade. And of course, I'm joined tonight by my attorney, Paul Bain. So if I say anything that gets me into deep water, Paul, you got to bail me out now. Okay, I'll try to not put it in print on the chat line. So Eric and John, Raheel, Blair, Kathleen, on behalf of crew, we are really grateful for your support. You know, Trevor's going through the same trials and tribulations in the hospitality trade, both from as winemakers and as restaurateurs, as we are here in Ontario. And I was having a great conversation yesterday where I feel like once the cloud lifts, relationships will be deeper. We really just found a way to work with each other when the lights went out a year and a bit ago. So as restaurateurs and as growers and as winemakers, it's been a really, there's been a positive side to this. We just entrenched friendships that, you know, that just didn't exist at that depth before. So from that perspective, really grateful that you could support us here on this journey. And then
Gratitude
finally,
goes both ways, for sure.
yeah, no, absolutely.
You're here.
With friends and, you know, friends first and business later, but it all comes full circle, which brings me to the fine print. So from the, that's you, Trevor, and Fergus, somewhere in there with your, this is an order form, and it's not for tonight. I'll send it out to everybody. You'll get it. You'll have information on how to get our wines, but it's not for tonight. Tonight, I have to go catch that rabbit still. And some of you have dessert. And I just wanted to sign off and say thank you so much, both to your group, John, and to you, Trevor, and to your whole team for helping us put this together tonight. I'll hand it back to you, John.
Thank you, Charles. I mean, obviously the gratitude goes both ways. I think that I'll love to echo what you said. Eric and I have always talked about building relationships and a culture in our own company, and the culture we build with our team is to go out and build good relationships with others in the industry, like we've tried to do. And like, you know, the conversation tonight has been amazing, but like you said, it's really about connecting with clients, with new clients, with old clients, with new guests and old guests. And we're very grateful for our team. And that includes many people behind the scenes. You know, the chef who prepared this tonight, Darren Egbers from Gardalas. Also, you know, Kathleen and her team, Joanna and Dawn, and everyone who packs the boxes and prints the labels and puts all the stickers on, and the drivers who get it to you. It's a massive team of people to make this happen. We're super grateful for all of them. And also for the team at Crew, Charles, it's super easy to work with you guys. And that makes life a lot better when you're putting together something like this. Trevor, thanks so much for staying up late and drinking with us. Thank you for the wines. They're so beautiful, and look forward to drinking more. And we can't wait to host you again in the future in Toronto. And more importantly, Eric and I can't wait to come and barbecue with you at your vineyard. And don't worry, I won't touch your grill. I will not touch your grill.
Don't touch my fire.
Not touch your fire. Don't worry. I'll just drink the wine. I'll sit beside Fergus, and we'll enjoy the afternoon. But this was the next best thing we could do this spring here in Toronto. Thank you to all the guests, of course, who joined us, who hopefully you're enjoying your dinner and your dessert, and more importantly, these wines. And you know where to find them. If you have trouble getting in touch with Crew, we will connect you. You can buy them by the bottle in our bottle shop or buy the case with Crew. So thank you again, everybody. We're going to sign off. It's well past the hour now. We couldn't be more grateful to everyone who's been supporting us through these tough, difficult months. We really look forward to having you at the table in person. Thanks, everybody, and have a lovely evening.
Au revoir, les amis. À bientôt,
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Trevor.
Ouais,
Have
à
a great
tout à
night.
l'heure. À la toute
Thank you,
prochaine. Hein.
everyone.
À la
Thank
prochaine.
you, John. Thank you, Trevor.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you,
again, Trevor.
Patricia.
Thanks, Charles. A
Henri.
presto.
Henri.
Kathleen, thank you. Blair,
Thank you,
you.
Charles.
Thanks.
night.
Trevor,
Thanks,